I think we can set it up again.
If you like what you hear, go to ganglandwire.com. We need you to put a hit out on our donate button. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ganglandwire. Follow true crime storyteller Gary Jenkins on Twitter at JenksLaw. Buy the DVD Gangland Wire or download the Kansas City Mob Tour app. And now, here's Gary Jenkins.
Good evening, folks. I'm back here with my good friend and co-host, Aaron Gnurk. Say hello, Aaron.
Hello, Aaron.
We are in our second episode of the straightening out of our story of the great 1972 hijacking, Lambert Field in St. Louis, and we were with the man who did it, Martin McNally. After, as you know, if you listen to the last episode, I put out 2 episodes telling this story a few months ago, and he happened to be listening to those episodes and thought it was pretty funny.
Well, he Googled his own name,
yeah,
which was apparently in the search string, and came upon the website, which you can come to, ganglandwire.com, and listen to it and contacted us because he thought it was hilarious, and it was also incorrect.
And he wanted to straighten us out, and we were happy to be straightened out because, as I said before, I never let the facts get in the way of a good story. You're not going to be footnoting your master's thesis to anything that I do. But I think I was mostly right, but there was a few little facts that I know that I took some what we call literary license with it to make it flow better, because I only had an old a book that an FBI agent wrote about his career, and he had about 3 pages of details about this. He must have been assigned to that case back then, and then there were some newspaper articles.
Wasn't it, because there was somebody that you had talked with that had kind of turned you on to the story about Martin McNally?
Yeah, actually, that was a friend of mine, Greg, from the National Archives. I was in there researching Junior Bradley, actually, trying to get some of those case files that they may have down there on it. And Greg told me, he said, here's a funny story for you. He said, I really would like to do a true crime book on this. And he started telling me the story, and he pulled up the old newspaper articles that happened at the time, because it made all the national news at the time. Greg said he thought it was really interesting. He knew I used to be a policeman. He thought maybe I'd know some way to find Mr. McNally, because we knew he was out on parole. He found that in an article in the newspaper, I guess. I think St. Louis paper had done an article on it and said he was released on parole. And I said, well, I'll make an effort. And I didn't really know where to even start. And I contacted a friend of mine up in Detroit who had some private detective friends, and they kind of searched around. I don't think they tried very hard, and he didn't come back with anything. And I'd forgotten about it until I got this email from Mac here. So
was it an email, or did he actually post a comment on the website?
Well, that's right. He commented on the website, I believe. Well, we've got him right here. Twice.
Yeah,
we've got him right here.
He commented, and then like an hour later, he did a second comment.
After he listened to the second episode. Well, it's always nice to get feedback from your work. You sometimes wonder, does anybody really care what we're doing?
Does it make any sense?
Aaron? Does it make any sense? Is anybody entertained? And that's what we're doing, a show here. We're not. This is not a history channel. We're doing a show.
Well, it is history, though.
It's history, but it's a show.
I think the interesting thing about the program, if you will, for us is that kind of that moniker of the words from the mouths of the men that did it, which is, if you listen to the intro to the program, is some of the wiretap material that Gary has in his documentary Gangland Wire, which is the words from the mouths of the men that did it. And here we are today talking with Martin J. McNally, the man who
hijacked that airplane.
Hijacked the plane.
So welcome, Mac. It's good to have you back here and good to be here with you. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here, and I laughed like hell, Gary, when I heard what you had to say, and I had to straighten it out, but a lot of the stuff that you're getting here has never been published, and it's explosive data that I think the public needs to know about.
Well, and you're also working with a journalist here who's got some material. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm working with a journalist here in St. Louis. We've already created 11 or 12 videos of our interviews, and he's going to be doing stories on in the Riverview Times in St. Louis. He's going to do some major articles, and he will follow up with one or maybe two books about my life story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's definitely two books. You've got the airline hijacking, and then we'll get into this later, folks. We've also got your time in the prison penitentiary and what happened there, which is
the big escape attempt.
The big escape attempt, which it was, I couldn't believe it. That's a story that just kept on telling itself.
Well, the whole story, I think, is one of these things where it's such a roller coaster ride.
Oh my God.
I mean, if we preface it by saying that back in '71 in Thanksgiving, D.B. Cooper, who's known for hijacking a 727 but never being found, kind of set the stage. If you didn't listen to the first episode of our interview with Martin J. McNally, he talks about hearing that as a news story on the radio sitting in the car.
And it's one of those memories, one of those vivid memories, folks. You probably all have them. I know I do. I remember the night that I decided I was going to go to law school. I was talking to this guy. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was working dog watch at Central Patrol. And this guy, Daryl Chisholm, walked up to me and he said, do you know so-and-so, mutual friend of ours, took the LSAT, which is the law school aptitude test. I said, oh, he did. I said, is he going to law school? And he said, well, he doesn't know, but he did pretty well on it. And all of a sudden I had this vivid, like physical, visceral feeling went down through my body, like I could do that. And the next thing I know, 2 years later, I was in law school. So, we have these moments. now, Martin.
Of Mac, clarity, really, in some ways.
Clarity. Mac, your moment of clarity didn't quite lead you to law school. It led you somewhere else.
Yeah, it did.
I don't know. Who knows why we do what we do in the end, but we do it.
What led him to St. Louis?
What led him to St. Louis. That's where we left off.
Where we kind of left off was here he was in Detroit, born and raised in Detroit, spent time in the Navy, and got out of the Navy and made his way back to Detroit, got married, was separated, living, financial problems, sounded like, didn't have a job at the time.
Did some kind of minor criminal behavior and
turned on the radio and
was getting away with that. And turned on the radio and heard about the hijacking and thought, well, that's a way to make
And you
money.
said that the DJ said, well, all you got to do is hijack a plane and ask for $500,000.
Yes.
And the DJ even said it, and that was what sparked you.
It got me laughing. I said, that'll do it. Just get on a plane and give them a note and have some weapons with you, and the airlines will kick out the money for you, and then you can bail out and go on your way and live your life. It didn't work that way.
Well, so here you are. How old were you at that point? This would have been in
28 years old.
28 years old. This would have been like in the 72.
1972. Yes.
You were still living in Detroit.
Yes.
You had somebody that you kind of worked with who we named in the first episode.
I was
Walter Petlikowski was your
Walter Petlikowski was my partner. He was a pool hustler, and we used to go to bars and make money, and sometimes get in fights because people recognized that he was a pool hustler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was good, but he'd play drunk and everything else, and he'd wind up beating them out of their money. But that was my friend.
You had this fantasy, and you started acting on it. You put together, you got a gun that looked like a machine gun. You cut it down. You got a pistol, a little 22 Beretta, or 380, I can't remember now, but it was a small Beretta, would fit in your pocket.
Small 25 Beretta.
25 Beretta, and a smoke grenade that kind of looked like a hand grenade, and an attaché case, and some clothes to make you look like a legitimate businessman, and as they described in the newspaper article, an ill-fitting wig that you wore, and so you then went to St. Louis. Walter took you down there, I believe, didn't he?
Yes, well, the first trip to St. Louis, I did it by myself. I had to scope out other airports. I went to Chicago, O'Hare, and I did that in February of 1972. And I immediately discounted that airport as being the focal point of taking the plane. I went to Indianapolis Airport. and decided against that place too.
How come you decided against those two?
O'Hare was too close to Detroit. Indianapolis, I saw too much security there.
And Detroit, you didn't want to do because that was where you were from?
Well, no, too much security in Indianapolis, and it was too close to Detroit and Chicago. But then I headed on to St. Louis. My first trip to St. Louis happened in February. The idea got in my head in January, and by February I was hitting all these airports.
You were doing your reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance, yeah. I was scoping out these airports to see which one would work. My first trip to St. Louis, I left Detroit at, I don't know what time it was, but I went about 250 miles out of my way. I got lost. I stopped on an expressway, and a trucker was at the side of the road, and I knocked on his door, and I said, how far is St. Louis from here? Which way is it to St. Louis? He said, you're way out of your way, dude. And he told me how far it was, and I got back in my car and turned around, and I finally hit St. Louis. It took 12 hours on that trip, the first trip, 12 hours. I hit St. Louis about 8 o'clock in the morning, stopped in the first motel that had 2 levels to it. It was a big hotel. Got a room and went to sleep. Got up about 7 or 8 o'clock that night, took a bath, and got back in my car and went to a gas station. And I said, which way is it to the airport? Lambert Field. So the guy told me. I got on I-70, and I drove probably, 30 miles. It was a long way. And I saw the airport. I parked my car. I went inside and scoped it out. In less than 10 minutes, I walked out of the airport. At the curb, I lit up a cigar, $1 cigar. Now it costs you about $10 for the same cigar, but I lit up a cigar and took a drag on it. I said, this'll do it. This is it. No security to speak of.
Now, when you went to Lambert Field, this, of course, was in 1972.
Yes.
And there really, there wasn't security at the airports. Like you could literally go from the curb to the terminal to the gate without anybody checking. Is that correct?
Yes, on some of this stuff, absolutely. That the TWA did have a metal detector at their gate, but American Airlines had no metal detector, and that's the one that I chose, American Airlines. I said, this will work. But there's more to it on what happened in April, mid-April of 1972, at about 5 o'clock. I was at the airport. My chauffeur, Walter Pedlikowski, had dropped me off, and I told him to go to the restaurant down the street about a mile away and wait there for 1 hour. If I didn't call him, that meant I got on a plane. But what happened is TWA had a metal detector, and I was going to, at the 5:20 p.m. Departure, I was going to go through the metal detector with my stuff and take the plane right from the ground. Pull out the weapon and tell them I'm taking this plane, get in the air, and I decided that that was too dangerous.
Was there any security at all? I mean, there must have been somebody manning like the metal detector.
No, there were no guards. There were no security at the metal detector. Nothing. But nothing at all. But I still decided that it wouldn't be a good idea to take the plane from the ground. I called Walt, had him come and pick me up, and went back to Detroit. I came back in May, and in May I went to the American Airlines desk without a ticket. There was about 4 or 5 people in front of me getting processed to get aboard the plane. Now those people had tickets, but I had no ticket. As I'm waiting in line, I'm thinking about going up to the counter there and just showing this ticket checker my gun and telling him I'm going to take this plane right now, and so forth and so on. However, I got cold feet, and I turned around. Luckily for me, that line was going slow, and I turned around, called Walt again at the restaurant, and he came and picked me up, and I I said, I can't do this now. I got to have a ticket. In June, I went to a friend of mine. I won't mention his name. I told him I needed a birth certificate. He was a printer. And he had a birth certificate. He said, don't tell anybody I gave you this. A blank birth certificate for Michigan. I took that back to my house, typed it up, and it looked pretty good. But then I made some mistakes in typing. So I tore that up and went back to him again and told him I needed another one because I screwed the first one up. He gave me another one, but he told me that, hey, I got some stuff coming into the city here soon, and you can have the first shot at it.
What was the stuff?
Counterfeit money.
Ah.
He was a absolute phenomenal printer and counterfeiter, and he could do all this stuff. He told me that the only thing that was stopping him was the paper to make a perfect bill, perfect $100 bills. And apparently he had got the bills, the paper for making the bills. I was standing at my car, and I was thinking, I should have stopped what I was doing with these airplanes and gone with him on the counterfeit bills. I told him, I said, I've been working on a case for about 5 months now, and it's a big case, and I got to go with it. So I didn't get the counterfeit money. But I did take that birth certificate, went down to St. Louis here, made a trip by myself. It was on a Tuesday, I think it was, the week of the Skyjacking. I went up to the counter, bought the ticket in the name of Robert Wilson.
And they asked for ID, and you said, well, all I have is this birth certificate?
I gave him the birth certificate, yes. So I gave him the birth certificate, ID, and my ticket was in the name of Robert Wilson. I got the ticket for the Friday flight. As I'm walking out of as I'm getting ready to walk out of the airport there, some guy calls out my name, McNally. I said, oh, shit. God, I'm being busted here. But I turned around and I saw this fella that I was in the service with. The guy's name is Floyd Palmer. And I said, Mr. Palmer, how are you doing? He said, you still remember me? And I said, yes, I certainly do. How could I forget you? You know, it's been about 8 or 9 years since we'd seen each other. And I talked to him for about 5 minutes. I told him, I got to go. My wife's outside, and she's waiting for me. So I'll talk to you later. And boop, boop, boop. So I left the airport, drove back to Michigan. I got with this Jim Petty. I told him I got the ticket here. I got with Walt and told him I got the ticket. It's on for Friday.
Well, that Jim Petty now, what was his connection?
He knew everything that was happening, and he gave me counsel on how to do some of these things and so forth and so on. At one time, when I was getting ready to pull it, he said, I don't think you should do this. And I said, well, I think I should because I've got so much time in it, so much time and so much money put into it. I think I expended close to $1,500 doing all these trips and buying all this whatever. He eventually gave up my name to the FBI, and he wasn't indicted, but they knew that he was involved in the preparation.
Because he was helping you try to figure out what was the things to do. I mean, while you had worked on airplanes in the Navy, this kind of you weren't in combat, were you ever?
No, I was never in combat. I flew aboard submarine reconnaissance aircraft, Neptune.
Okay.
P-2V Neptune aircraft.
So here we are. You're back to Detroit. You have your ticket bought.
Got my ticket.
And so you need a ride back down to St. Louis.
Yes.
But that was the upcoming Friday, I believe.
On the upcoming Friday, my partner, Walter Pelikowski, drove me down on Thursday night. We got to a motel about 60 miles outside of St. Louis. Got there about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We got a good night's sleep. Got up about 10 or 11 o'clock the next day on the Friday that this thing went. I think we left the motel about noon, and we drove to St. Louis, and we were early, so we went to the river, the Mississippi River, and just stayed at the edge of the river in the car, and at approximately I think it was maybe 1:30 or so, we drove to the airport, and the flight was to take off, I think, about 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, it was an American Airlines flight. I was looking it up online here.
119 American
flight
Airlines.
119.
Yes.
It says at approximately 2:35, American Airlines, a Boeing 727 airplane, flight 119, originating from New York City, left St. Louis. So it actually flew in to St. Louis. You picked it up in St. Louis.
Yes, it came in from New York.
Petlakowski drops you off just at the curb there.
Yes, he dropped me off at the airport.
You've got an attaché case, not a trombone case like people would read online.
An attaché case, business type attaché case.
A .45 caliber rifle that had a sawed-off barrel. You removed the stock, long clip.
Yes.
All of this, and a pistol was in the back of your, like in the waistband, or was it in the attaché case?
The pistol was in the attaché case.
So everything was in the attaché case.
Yes.
You had a ticket, no real photo ID at the time.
No.
And you walk into the airport, he drives away.
Yes.
And you say, if I don't call you in an hour, you know what's happened.
That's right.
Like you had before.
So what did that feel like? I mean, did you have butterflies in your stomach? Do you remember any of your feelings? Or
no, I didn't have.
Like a man of steel walking in there in control.
I didn't have any butterflies. I didn't have any fear. And I was about my business. Went up to the counter just before the boarding. There were about maybe 80 people there, and checked with the ticket clerk and sat down, and they started to board the plane, and everything was going fantastic. We boarded the plane, no metal detectors, no nothing. Went into the plane, and I got a seat in the back.
Were you assigned a seat beforehand?
No, I was not assigned a seat.
You just simply boarded the plane?
Yes.
And they were like, everyone sit where you want.
That's right.
So now this plane, did you choose, this has the rear stairways. Were they all like that, or did you research that out? Did you know that?
I definitely researched it. D.B. Cooper had the steps, and you got to you got to be on a 727 to bail out.
Okay. So when you actually booked the flight, you were, as much as you were looking at any particular flight, or just the flight that was the aircraft of a 727?
Before I went to the airport, I had gotten the schedule of all the flights of American Airlines. And I looked at that schedule and what planes were being flown. That's how I picked out the 727 at 2:30 in the afternoon, going from St. Louis to Los Angeles, coming in from New York. That's how I picked that particular flight from the schedule the schedule book that I got from American Airlines. But it had to be a 727.
All right, great. So you're on the plane. The plane takes off. You still a man of steel? You still not nervous at all?
Not at that time.
Interesting. So
the nervousness came in later, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Then you seem like you went in the bathroom. What was your next step?
We're on the plane. We're going into. We're going to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we're going to pick up some more people. About 10 to 15 minutes out of Tulsa, the pilot comes on the intercom, and he says, "We're getting ready to land in Tulsa. Be there in a couple of minutes." At that particular point, I'm sitting there. I'm thinking, damn, you got to pump up your nuts here. If you don't do this now, you're going to land and with this attaché case, and you're going to have to get a room, and you're going to have to figure out how to get back to Detroit, blow it off completely.
Wait, so when you bought the ticket, you only bought a ticket from St. Louis to Tulsa?
I bought a ticket, a two-way ticket. I paid. I bought
a round trip.
A round trip to
Los
Tulsa,
Angeles,
Oklahoma.
Okay,
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
To Tulsa.
I bought a round trip ticket. It cost me $70. $70. I paid cash, and as a matter of fact, I think American Airlines owes me $35.
Because they didn't give you a reimbursement on the second half of that flight.
Second half.
No, I didn't use the second half, and I think they owe me $35.
I think they do too.
But I never applied for that.
Let's file a lawsuit.
Refund. Can I get my?
I'm a lawyer. I'll sign you up right now.
The interest on that might really be worth something, but so you're sitting there and you're in the back of the plane.
Wait, you get the counterclaim.
I'm sitting there. I'm saying to
were you
myself,
holding
I
the
got to
bag?
do it now or forget about it forever. I said, yeah, but I got to do it. I didn't know the configuration of the plane. And the guy that was sitting next to me, I said, where's the restroom in this plane? And he told me it's in the back on the right-hand side, the men's room, and on the other side is the women's room. I said, all right, I got to use it. So I leaned down, I grabbed my attaché case, picked it up, and I said, excuse me. And he got out of the way, and I went into the back, opened up the door to the bathroom, laid my attaché case down on the counter, and I opened it up. I pulled out my wig, put on my wig. I pulled out the gloves that I had. I had rubber gloves. And then I pulled out the rifle. The rifle, it looks like a grease gun. Now, this is a critical situation here.
Like it's not armed, so you really have to cock it.
It's not armed, but I have to arm this thing. And I got to pull this back.
The bolt. You got to pull the bolt back.
I got to pull the bolt back and click it. And if I happen to slip on this, and it comes in and it fires a cartridge, it's going to go through the fuselage. You know, we're up 20,000, 25,000 feet, and we're in a pressurized cabin. This would be disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a critical point here. I pull that bolt back and click it, and then I open the door and close the door. I'm in the back of the plane. Nobody's in back of me. I'm at the back near this where the door going to the steps is at.
About how long were you in the restroom there, do you think?
I'd say about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
Then I got in a hunch position with my gun facing the right and my left hand. I'm left-handed, and my left hand on the trigger and everything. And for 3 minutes there, I'm waving my hand trying to get the attention of the stewardess, one of the stewardesses. That took about 3 minutes, and I'm sitting there, I'm standing there, I'm going to myself, oh, this is screwed up.
You can swear if you want. That's okay.
Okay, that's fucked
uncensored
up.
episode.
I said, this is fucked up. She finally sees me, and she comes back, and she says to me, don't hurt anybody. And I said, ma'am, I'm not here to hurt anybody, but I got a note here that you need to give to the pilot. But in the meantime, move these people in these first seats here on the right-hand side. Move these people up front. Her name was Jane Elizabeth Furlong. A very nice young lady, very pretty, kind of woman I'd like to marry. So, I'm just joking. So,
that's why I gave her that $1,000 or $1,400. I know
I gave
now.
her a bunch of money.
I know now. Okay.
So,
that's why she stayed on the plane to the end. Don't let her go.
I don't think Jane was on the plane to the end. One of the other women was, I forget who she was. She moved the people up front. As she moved them, there was a man, his wife, and their 2 kids. Now, the little girl, I think, moved first, and then the wife moved next, and then the little boy, he was about 10 or 12 years old, he got in the aisle there, and he was stopped and turned around and looked at me for maybe 30 seconds. I don't know what was going through his mind, but finally turned around and headed up front. The man, he was big. He looked like a football player. He got up, stood up, turned around. He was staring at me. Now, this is critical. This guy was staring at me. He wasn't moving. My gun was not pointing at him. But then, because what he was doing, I moved the barrel and pointed it right at him and gave a growl like that. And when I gave him the growl, he moved. He turned around and what? He turned around and booted. But I know what was going through his brain. He would probably try to charge me and maybe kick me or whatever else.
Disarm you?
Disarm me. He came very, very close. I don't know what his name is. He's probably still alive. He came very close to being killed because I didn't blink. For the entire time that he was standing there, I didn't blink. And if I would have blinked after I pulled the trigger. But
when you actually leveled the gun at him, and
I leveled the gun at him,
tried
and
he was staring you down.
I was ready to take him out. Yes.
Now, but at that point, the plane was, it's in its descent or close to its descent to go down to Tulsa. Did the stewardess had to take the note up to the pilot? So was he informed at that point, or were you still kind of corralling to get people to the front of the plane, send her up to the front of the plane?
Yeah, I think what I did here, I think the way this went was I gave her the note, take this to the pilot, and then come back here immediately.
Yeah.
So I think in a matter of 2 minutes, she ran up to the pilot cockpit, gave him the note, and came back to me and said, "What's next?" That's the scenario how it went. And then I told her, move these people up here and move them up front, and we'll go from there.
Was the flight very full at the time?
The plane had about 80 or 90 people in it. Yes, it was full.
So now did they, I'm trying to remember, did he land in Tulsa?
No.
You went back to St. Louis, I believe.
Yes, the pilot, after he read the note.
Did he come back on the intercom?
He did.
This is your pilot speaking.
This is your pilot speaking. We have we have a passenger on board. He wants to go back to St. Louis, so we're going back to St. Louis. And the plane turned around immediately and scooted back to St. Louis.
All right, so you're headed back to St. Louis. I think we're going to go ahead and take another break here and regroup. And when we come back, we will talk about what happened in St. Louis, because it got real interesting in St. Louis.
Yeah, it got real interesting
in St. Louis.
Yes.
You won't believe this next part of the story, folks. All right, we are going to pass on out now. Say goodnight, Aaron.
Good night, Aaron. Music provided by Odd-O-Matic. Follow them on Twitter at Odd-O-Matic Music.